This long-haul truck has reached the end of the road. But it won't be retired. It'll be reborn. In Sweden, old trucks die hard.
I'm gonna smash some trucks today.
A crew will rip them apart, beat them up, and melt them down.
You like the smell and don't
so they can be recycled and rebuilt even bigger. Long-haul trucks are the king of Swedish roads. But today, this Volvo FH Globetrotter will stop rolling. It's hauled consumer goods for half a decade and maxed out at over 1 million kilometers. So, it's headed for a breakdown at Volvo's facility in Kungälv, Sweden. Like other truck manufacturers, the team here operates under a strict recycling standard. Reuse, rebuild, or recycle 95% of the truck. So, Patrick Igarut and Inge Johansson get straight to work assessing what can be saved for resale, what will be scrapped, and what will be recycled. The most valuable parts are the cab, engine, and axles. But to salvage them, the team must systematically dismantle the truck, cutting free each part without damaging its cables or wiring. The breakdown will unfold in 4 steps. Step 1, the cleanup. Clear the truck of any potentially hazardous materials like batteries and fluids. Step 2, the strip down. Skin the truck's front panels and lights and lift off the cab. Step 3, the gut out. Component by component, cut away each part of the truck to reach and remove the engine. And step 4, the final breakdown. Salvage the axles, cutting away and recycling nearly every material that's left over, like the tires and chassis. Not only will this Globetrotter be reused and recycled, it'll be reborn, and reborn big. Steel from trucks like the Globetrotter will go into the heart of the next generation of Volvos. The FH16, aka the world's strongest truck. At over 3 meters tall and packing a 700 horsepower punch, this long-haul truck is their most powerful machine yet. The birthplace of this modern road warrior is the Volvo factory near Gothenburg. Every year, 25,000 machines roll off the assembly line and onto the global highway. Trucks can even be customized.
You can get the truck as you like. We don't say no. If you want something, you can get it.
Customers can select engines from 390 to 700 horsepower. And customized cabs and paint designs. Not to mention a choice of truck frames with anything from 6 to 14 wheels. But there's one thing all long-haul trucks have in common. They use lots of fuel and expel pollutants. So like many truck manufacturers, Volvo's striving to increase fuel efficiency and reduce emissions. But Environmental Director Lars Mortensen knows the green challenge doesn't stop there. Part of his mission is to plan for the truck's end life.
When we assemble it, we should also think about the next step when we need to take it apart.
Volvo has a zero landfill goal, so they must manufacture most components from materials that can be reused or recycled.
And that is what is the big challenge here. Think about the future already today.
But designing for the future is only half the equation. The other half is ensuring decommissioned trucks like the Globetrotter are recycled down to the last bolt, not just harvested for their most valuable parts. The breakdown team of Mikael Olofsson and Kenneth Olsson is up to the challenge. But they must work fast. It takes time and manpower to deconstruct a truck. The team has just 3 days to strip, gut, and salvage the Globetrotter. And they're itching to get started. The first task at hand, remove the cargo container. Mikael fires up the blowtorch and cuts the box loose from the frame. It's 7 meters long and can accommodate nearly 60 cubic meters of cargo. Empty, the box weighs almost 4 tons. But with a little hydraulic help, the team easily lifts it off. It's in excellent condition. They'll resell it for close to $5,000. Now, the salvage process can begin. Mikael's really ready to get his hands dirty.
Kenneth, get your asses here!
But Kenneth gets to work in a much more Swedish manner.
I don't say much, but I work very hard.
They're ready for the first step, the cleanup. They must remove all the potential hazards before the breakdown can begin. Blowtorches and batteries are a recipe for disaster. If the team's torches come in contact with the batteries, the crew could be seriously burned. So, they must remove the batteries before any work can begin.
If we don't dismount them, there can be accident. If you put an iron between these two, it will start to glow and the battery can explode.
Even these 5-year-old batteries can be recharged and resold.
This battery, we can get 1,000 crowns for each.
That's close to $150 a battery. Now it's time for Kenneth to take out the next potentially hazardous material, antifreeze. It's protected this truck's parts from seizing in Sweden's harsh winters, when temperatures can be nearly minus 30 degrees Celsius. But today, all 45 liters must come out for reuse or recycling. Now, the breakdown team's ready to start stripping down the Globetrotter. Their goal? Lift out and remove the cab. Long-haul trucking is an industry that combines severe weather and lots of weight, so accidents happen. The most common casualties are the front of this powerhouse, the lights, grills, bumpers, and the cab itself. The team knows these parts are easy to replace, and that means they're easy to sell. Mikael and Kenneth carefully salvage the grille and side paneling first. Then they prepare to remove the cab. The plastic clips that hold the truck's hoses and wires in place make the prep work easy.
These clips are put in from the factory. I lost forever.
But now there's dozens of cables to contend with.
Now I'm removing all the cables so I can lift the cabin.
The strip down is Kenneth's favorite part of the breakdown. Now they must disconnect the cab's mounting brackets.
In America, you tip cows, we tip cabins.
Quicker, quicker.
Finally, they're ready for liftoff. Kenneth Olsen and Mikael Olofsson are ready to salvage the Globetrotters cab. But Environmental Director Lars Mortensen pays the team a visit before they get started.
Hey, Lars. Hey. Spännande.
His recycling challenge and success lies in the individual truck breakdown. He doesn't just want them to salvage the valuable parts. He wants them to recycle every last piece of the truck.
I would be happy if we could recycle up to 95%.
We can use everything. If it's in pretty good condition.
This truck is worth the time and manpower it'll take to break it down. But some old trucks aren't worth the trouble. In that case, Volvo goes straight for the metal. Stiena Recycling, a 7-hectare scrapyard in southern Sweden. They shred 500,000 tons of machinery yearly, and these 5 are the facility's newest metal meal. One by one, a forklift carries the lifeless trucks to the mega machine dinner table. The Volvo EC460 mechanical shear is the guest of honor.
I'm gonna smash some trucks today.
It starts off with a rubber appetizer. And then moves in for the metal main course. Using the truck's fuel tanks for the chopping block. Truck by truck, it uses its claw-like shear attachment to crush with a force of 350 kilos per square centimeter. To earn its keep, this hungry monster needs to process nearly 45,000 tons of scrap a month for recycling. Back at the breakdown facility, the team's primed to remove one of the truck's most valuable parts, the cab.
So we can work really.
They limber up with a little tool toss.
Oh. Det är inte det. Ja, lugnare. Det går bra.
They're ready.
Är du med, Kenneth? Ja. Är du med, Kenneth? Är fast den? Ja. Ner. Lite till. Now it's just a few more bolts. The team lifts the cab free.
It's valued at $10,000, and the team will sell it to a customer whose own cab was damaged in a highway accident. It's a half hour before quitting time and a race to finish the strip down. They still must remove the air compressors, muffler, and mud flaps.
That's show business. He's always taking the easy way out.
Day one of the breakdown is complete.
Then we finish for today. We take some coffee and cigarettes now.
Tomorrow, it's time for them to take out the heart of the truck. The massive 460 horsepower engine. Mikael Olofsson and Kenneth Olsson must cut free the engine from this Volvo FH Globetrotter. It would be easy for the team to rip the truck apart to salvage the engine, but they've got a 95% recycling standard. So the team must take the truck apart piece by piece. First up, the shock absorbers. They might make for a smooth ride on the road, but they're not easy to remove.
We have to cut that one.
Usually, the team avoids using a blowtorch because it can damage the components. But this is one tough task. So Kenneth's inner Viking takes control.
This is my favorite tool. Now that I got what I want, a burning shock absorber.
But Mikael's there to keep Kenneth in line and vacuum out the fumes. Next, the team takes on the drive shafts. These 2-meter-long steel bars transfer the energy from the engine to the wheels. After 1 million kilometers, they've rotated an average of 1 billion times. But they're still in good condition.
Du got lost, don't you know that?
We take the big sledge. Da 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 da. Yeah. Yeah, they got it.
That's great,
Heavy parts need heavy stuff.
Yeah.
New, these drive shafts would cost $3,000. Used, they'll sell for half that price. The radiator is next on the list. It's made of aluminum and steel, metals that the team likes to salvage. But it also contains something Mikael doesn't like to find.
Poor little bird. Traffic accident. We make sure he get a decent burn.
The closer they get to the engine, the dirtier the team gets. The transmission is the last big component in their way. Finally, the crown jewel is exposed. The 460 horsepower engine.
My precious.
It's valued at $10,000, so it must come out carefully. After years of use, the bolts that secure the engine have rusted and fused to the frame. They can remove most of the bolts, but there's one in particular that just won't budge. But for every big challenge, there's an even bigger tool.
Here's Big Papa. Give me the...
When that doesn't work, there's always old-fashioned muscle power.
Some good old violence.
Finally, the bolt comes free.
Good, Michael.
The engine's ready to come out.
You must be careful with the frame. Are you ready, Mike?
Yeah, I'm ready. You too?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'll take you.
I hope we don't forget anything.
I don't think so.
The team's manager, Patrick Ikarut, arrives to keep them on schedule. He's got his eye on the bottom line. The longer the breakdown takes, the more it costs in manpower, and that comes out of his profits. Kenneth gives it a tug, but something's holding it. There's a hose in the way, so they must maneuver around it. But it's not easy to push around a 1,200 kilo engine. The chain strains under the weight.
Lower it.
Success.
Lower it now.
They check that all the engine's components and auxiliary parts are intact. Now, the company can give it an overhaul, so it can hit the road again in another truck. The engine may be the mother load, but along the way, the team's collected a pile of metal and unusable parts. This so-called scrap is a critical part of the recycle strategy, because this metal's about to be transformed into a brand new engine. It all happens in Huvda, one of Sweden's oldest active foundries and factory. Here, the old becomes the new. Every day, trucks dump scrap iron and steel that they've collected from around the country, from railroad plates to discarded engine blocks. It's all headed for a meltdown. The process begins when a magnet crane operator loads the truck scrap into a transport bucket. Load after load. The bucket dumps the scrap for the new engine into the furnace, where it's melted to temperatures up to 1600 degrees Celsius. Three stories below, chutes direct the molten metal into transport vats. Overseeing the melting process is Jan Oskar Oskarsson.
I make the best iron in the world at Volvo.
He's been at the foundry for over 2 decades and has a special affinity for his job.
It's interesting and it's like a Swedish Viking. You like to smell and dunk and...
He may feel like a Viking, but his job's more like a chef's. It takes a perfect mix of graphite, copper, and chrome to make the strongest steel for an engine block. After a test cast, Jan adds a pinch of chrome for added strength. Then a worker transports the molten mix to the form line. And machines inject it into molds made of compressed sand. Minutes later, the heart of the engine emerges, the engine block. It's so hot, only a mechanical arm can handle it. The block's encrusted in sand, so it's off to the blast chamber for some cleaning. The blast chamber is like a car wash on steroids. Inside, the engine block gyrates back and forth, while it's pummeled with billions of steel pellets that remove the sand. 2 minutes later, the engine block's ready for assembly. At Volvo's facility, an army of workers and their non-human helpers build up the engine. The robots get the grunt work. The first one grinds down any jagged edges left over from the casting process. The next drops in the cylinders that will hold the pistons. And yet another applies sealant. But when it comes to installing the fuel injectors, only a human hand will do.
The injection is a very important part of the engine. It's important because if you don't get the timing right, then you have a malfunction of the engine.
Another robot connects the engine head to the block. Then the humans take over again. From turbochargers to timing wheels, workers install an inventory of other parts. After a paint job, the engine's ready to roar to life. To keep up with factory demand, Hoofda puts out over 100,000 units a year. Just because these engines are made from recycled material doesn't mean they're not powerful. In fact, Volvo's strongest model delivers a 700 horsepower performance punch. But environmental director Lars Mortensen knows the engine's strengths don't end there. This mega machine is also more fuel efficient.
If we compare with an old truck, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, this is about 80% cleaner. It means 80% less emissions. But at the same time, it also uses about 8 to 10% less fuel.
The secret's in the computerized fuel injection.
You, of course, want to have more power, but at the same time, you don't want to get too much fuel. So that's why the computer comes in, to use the fuel in an intelligent way.
This new technology is Volvo's future. But back at the breakdown facility, the crew's still dealing with old technology. Now, there's nothing left of the Globetrotter but its chassis, wheels, and axles. The final breakdown's about to begin. The FH Globetrotter is but a shadow of its former self. Now, all Mikael Olofsson and Kenneth Olsson have to do is cut it up. First, Mikael strips out any leftover cabling.
Plastic clip, they've done their work. Feels like there's millions of these clamps. So there's lots of cables from the cabin.
Corroded bolts continue to give the team trouble. When the power wrench doesn't do the trick, Kenneth's inner Viking makes a return appearance.
Kenneth, he hits like the lightning. He never hits the same spot twice. That's Kenneth.
Do you think so? No, it's not true. You're lying.
I am the fire brigade. You need some?
Like some sweat.
Even parts of the chassis can be sold. There's a customer who wants to lengthen the bed of his own truck frame. So Mikael measures and marks a portion of the chassis that they'll cut and sell to the customer for a custom fit.
He wanted one of those, and there's less holes possible.
But first, they must lift the chassis free. Kenneth does the prep work. But Mikael finishes the frame off.
Get the truck and I...
You're small but very strong. Like
Yeah,
it. How do you do? Take them off. Yeah.
Then Kenneth cuts down the remaining pieces for recycling. More potential food for the foundry. and engine blocks made from recycled steel. But when it comes to creating a new chassis, recycled steel won't do. The entire weight of the truck rests on this part. So for durability, the factory must forge it from virgin steel. The process starts with sheets of steel that machines bend and cut into 4 to 7 meter U-shaped beams. Next, another machine power punches assembly holes into the nearly 1 centimeter thick steel. They even recycle the cast-offs. The parts for the new chassis roll onto the factory floor. Now, a new truck is ready to be built up. But back at the yard, the old truck's almost completely broken down. There's just one more component for the team to salvage: the axles. It's the final stage of the breakdown. The team's got only the axles and wheels to contend with. Mikael and Kenneth remove the first set of tires. Even these tired treads can be recycled. In fact, 50% of tires on Swedish roads are retreads from companies like Vianor in western Sweden. Up to 500 old tires arrive here daily. And factory manager Tora Ekblad knows just how to make them like new again. It all starts with a good buffing.
What we are doing here is that we are taking the tread parts away by a special machine. We call it a buffing machine.
2 steel drums, lined with 8 rows of serrated teeth, descend on the tire while the machine rotates it nearly 50 times a second. In a matter of minutes, the buffer removes the top ½ centimeter of the tire. Next, a worker inspects the tire to make sure it's in good condition. They must repair tires that have damaged cores or contain foreign objects like nails.
It's a very bad injury, and depending on how deep it is, and also if we have some rust inside here, we're going to scrap it.
Tires that make the cut move to the next step, the treading table. Here, a machine applies a thin layer of a rubber-based compound to the tire's surface. The substance, called cushion gum, facilitates the bonding of the new tread to the old tire. Next, the machine rolls the new treads onto the tire, and a worker staples the ends together. Then, a team of 2 preps the tires for the oven with rubber wraps.
The envelope is the rubber one that you have covered here. And inside you also have an inner envelope for working with it, so you can create the pressure for vulcanization.
Vulcanization may sound like what happens on a starship, but it's a chemical reaction that takes place in the oven. Here, the oven bakes the tires at almost 120 degrees Celsius for nearly 4 hours. Hoses extract air from each tire's envelope to create a high-pressure vacuum. The combination of heat and pressure causes the rubber molecules to fuse and strengthen.
It's ready to cook, yes.
It's the same chemical process that manufacturers use to make everything from hockey pucks to hoses. Hours later, the newly treaded tires are ready for the final inspection.
Looking for damages, see if the tire is okay.
Now they're ready to roll.
Many people think that retread tires is a cheap tire, but that's as good as a new tire, yes, absolutely.
That's good news for consumers and for the environment. Up to 400 tires are returned to use here daily, saving over 100,000 tires from landfills a year. Meanwhile, back at the breakdown facility, old tires are also on the agenda. The team must take them off to reach the axles. They're valued at $4,000 a unit and one of the most money-making parts of the truck.
Good one. Yep.
They roll away the final tire and the axle's free. The breakdown is over, but this truck is far from dead. In just 3 days, Mikael and Kenneth have deconstructed this Volvo FH Globetrotter. They've used a clean breakdown strategy and recouped the max amount from the project. They'll sell the pristine cab for up to $10,000. The radiator, transmission, axles, and tires have also been bought or recycled. And the 460 horsepower engine is ready for an overhaul, so it can hit the highway again in another truck. But more importantly, almost everything, from the copper to the batteries, will have an afterlife. The steel and aluminum are headed for the foundry to find their way into the newest Volvo trucks. Total parts value, nearly $50,000. And a recycling success at 95%. Like a phoenix from a flame, material from trucks like the FH Globetrotter is primed to roar back to life at Volvo's factory near Gothenburg. And today, the team's assembling their most powerful model, the 700 horsepower FH16. Hoists move the newly assembled chassis to the 100,000 square meter factory floor and onto the drive shaft assembly. The assembled truck base moves to a series of stations where workers connect thousands of meters of wires and cabling. A team member uses pedal power to deliver any supplies that the crew may need. Then, the crew lowers in the engine with a core created from old truck scrap and wires it up. Next, the team installs the light panels and bumpers. And finally, the crowning moment, the cab. Designs are as unique as the truckers who custom order them. The tire team power screws on the wheels. And the truck's ready to roll.
Yep.
A new truck's been born. But now, it's time to see if it can perform.